So here at Carbon Quest, we are a startup that's focused we are a startup that's focused on a brand new distributed carbon capture technology that can be deployed at the consumer edge of the network. So it's a solution that works on site within the built environment. We're not trying to necessarily tackle new building construction, but 95% of the buildings that are here today are going to be here 50 years from now. And so we're creating a solution that we can put on site. It removes the CO2 from the building's exhaust before it's emitted into the atmosphere. We capture that CO2, we convert it to a liquid, and then we sell it as a sustainable CO2 product back into a local market, creating a local circular carbon economy. So we need an environment that will allow that to foster. We need to create the structure, allow buildings, something that compels them to decarbonize. We have a great and compelling solution that makes business sense. And then we need partners in the utilization space, places where we can go with the CO2, find ways to close that circular carbon economy. It's going into cement products that then are going into, units that are now going right back into building construction. So we're doing it today. We see an opportunity with e-fuels, with aggregates, with wastewater treatment, and there's a whole innovation that's happening on that side. That's a community that will come around us, the buildings, and our technology that will help get this to scale. We're a small startup. We started 3 years ago with an idea on a whiteboard. 2 years ago, we installed our first project, and today we have another 5 projects under construction. So we've essentially funded this company through our own funding and a series of friends and family rounds. So it's a private investment. But as we've kind of accomplished the proof points in the market, we're at an inflection point. So we're at an inflection point where we see the opportunity, it's commercially ready, it makes economic sense. So we need to now bring in the investment that'll allow us to scale the business. So in terms of a business model structure that would bring the whole community together, it's a very complex set, and I don't think there's a one formula fits all. But if you understand the entire value chain, and you think about how fundamentally the consumer gets a return on the investment, or an investor that's financing a project, you just have to look at everything in that value chain and then create a structure by which everyone can get a return on the investment. And so there's a function of, you can create an incentive structure like what's happened in the US with the IRA and 45Q. That helps. You can also then compel consumers to act via climate-based programs or frameworks that would force them to reduce their carbon footprint. In New York City, there's a local law, they call it Local Law 97, that's an output of their Climate Reduction Act, that they put a cap on building carbon emissions. And the cap goes down over time. And then they put a price tag on the carbon value for exceeding those emissions. It's essentially a penalty, a stick that's going to compel customers into action. That creates an economic mechanism by which we can get a return for our customers, and they can meet their sustainability goals. We can get a healthy payback on the system, and then we create a business case that involves return on investment for the asset and selling that CO2 into the marketplace. So it's just an example. I think there'll be a variety of mechanisms. There'll be market mechanisms, I think standards in the carbon markets. So there's clarity around the different types of carbon components. We deliver a commodity there you can weigh and measure. There's absolutely no doubt that this amount of carbon was reduced. That's a high quality value credit, but it's got to be credit worthy, it's got to be accountable. So how do we track that all the way to the end and know that if somebody buys a carbon credit from one of our customers, that they know that we've actually reduced that carbon and it can be accounted in the market. And these things are all emerging, but that's an example of creating a framework of value around that will make the enabled economics to work and enable customers to meet their goals and get returns on these assets and bring financing at scale to these projects. When it comes to minerals, everything we manufacture on this earth is related to minerals. We lived through the supply chain issues the last 3 years. It's as we interrupt the balance of supply and demand, we create lasting and long-term challenges. I think that we are going to face supply chain issues and that starts with mining and the fundamental minerals and resources. I think certain segments it's affected more than others. In terms of our segment, it's we don't have like exotic minerals that are in short supply, so I don't believe that's going to limit our issue is around just fundamental broad supply chain, but then the unspoken thing is like the labor force, right, to actually implement all this technology, because we're going to face a significant challenge. We're trying to electrify fleets, we're trying to deploy all the renewables, we're trying to deploy battery energy storage, we're trying to deploy carbon capture, both point source and direct air, and do it all at the same time, and it takes all the same resource pool to get it done. So there's as much as a challenge in financing as there is just developing the talent, developing the resource pool, figuring out creative ways to innovate around that, to get it to, there's this urgency that we have to act and act quickly. So we have to solve a whole bunch of challenges in that supply chain that are going to really enable us to accomplish the goals. In terms of the vision and the optimism around can we achieve it, whether the target is climate related 1.5C or it's net zero, under what time frame, I mean, we have no choice. This is one of these scenarios where we all cross the finish line together, right, as a community, right? It's not like we all breathe the same air. It's not like there's some losers and some winners, right? So as a community, we have to figure out how to come together. So, first of all, I mean, I get the activism, right? I get investments in long-term solutions that are more ideal, but we have to find a practical and a pragmatic way to transition. So it's a very complex challenge, because I'm an optimist, I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm absolutely going to believe that we can get there. I believe in the power of humanity, the creativity, the drive, and then it's just up to us to come together. So we have to find a way to meet the long-term goal, but have a viable transition. And at the end, be able to afford, the end result in terms of the utility resources that are going to be delivered, and make it sustainable from there on. And I believe we have the power to do it, but it's going to be extremely challenging. I think we need to put more focus personally on those technologies that can be deployed today that make an immediate difference. If you think about the time value of carbon, as an example, we should avoid every molecule of CO2 that we're putting in the air today. We're focused very heavily on how to remove it with direct air capture, and we think 10, 15, 20 years we're going to have price mechanisms that work. We're trying to invest in that, and I think we absolutely should. But if all of the focus and the effort goes into solving that long-range problem, what's the time value of carbon, every molecule that we put in the atmosphere between now and then? And it's, we're putting in the air at like 100,000 parts per million. You have to remove it at 400 to 500, right? So just the fundamental economics of 2.5 orders of magnitude, we can do this today and make a significant difference on this long-term journey. So we need investments, we need acceptance of solutions that work today and are economically viable while we work on this long-term transition. I mean, at the end, we need to do everything we can as aggressively as we can all at once. So I'm kind of one of those all things guy, right? I really believe that we need as much renewables, we need as much batteries, we need as much energy efficiency and controls and AI and everything, but we're not going to solve this problem via social media. It's going to take hardware. These are real assets, capital intensive. They take a long time to implement. They're complex. All the issues are, around how do we do it in our backyards? How do we gain society's support? How do we come together between all these communities to actually start to get things done? Because that's what we have to do. We have to transition from talk and great ideas to actually implementing and getting things done that make a difference. If we don't, we're going to be sitting here 10 years from now in serious trouble. And then, when you react under serious trouble, you don't act in the most common sense and economically viable way. So, but I see great potential, and I think we've got frameworks that are starting to develop internationally. Recognition that the only way we're going to get there is through a common sense approach, and so that's what I'm advocating for.